So tell me about yourself. Who are you?
Hi. Well, my name is Isabel Sampson Mapp, and I had to practice for a long time to learn to say my name, which is, I say Isabel now, but my name is actually Isabel Maria. But many people didn't understand me when I said that my name was Isabel. And so, after having come to the United States, I learned. But sometimes when I speak, I still make a mistake, and I'll still say that you hear the Isabel come out as opposed to Isabel, which is what I now use.
So I heard you have a poem to share with us today.
I think about my mother, and no matter what holiday it was, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, sometimes she even made up a holiday because she memorized this 10 stanza poem, and I just remember it fondly. So I just want to share a little part of it with you. It's called Incidente de Cumbia. Con queja de indio y grito de chombo dentro de la cantina de Panchamanchá, trashumando ambiente de timba y quilombo, se oye que la cumbia resonando está. Panchamanchá tiene la cumbia caliente, la de Chepigana y la del Chocó, y cuando borracha se alegra la gente, llora el tamborero, llora chimbombó.
And what does that mean?
Well, it talks about a man who was a slave, and he was a drummer, and he was in love with a woman, and I didn't really understand it because I was a child at the time, but mostly I just remember her emphasis on his playing the drum and how the people danced when he played the drum, but for some reason he was sad. But I just loved the way my mother, I read it, but my mother actually memorized all 10 stanzas, and she would say it, and we would just wait for the holidays to hear her recite the poem. And it's just a part of our history. No matter what's happening, I just always hear my mother's voice reciting this poem in Spanish. And it's also interesting because the other thing that I do in Spanish is count. Whenever I have to do multiplication or add some things up in my head, I tend to do that in Spanish. And that always reminds me of who I am.
So speaking of your childhood and the holidays, where are you from, and how would you describe your childhood?
Well, I was born in Colon, Panama, and it was idyllic. We lived a block away from the beach, and I remember my father making kites out of newspapers and bamboo, and we would go down to the beach and fly kites. And that was important to us, and church was important. We always wore white to church for some reason. I was never clear why. And life was good. Although Panama was 16 blocks long and 9 blocks wide, not Panama, but Colon itself, and 9 blocks wide, we had a car and we would drive around. But Sundays were very exciting because on Sundays we got a chance to drive to the city. We drove to Panama City. So life was good. We, um, we attended 2 schools. I went to Spanish school in the morning, and I went to a private English school in the evening because my parents wanted to make sure that not only would we be bilingual, but we would also be able to read and write in both languages.
So speaking of being bilingual, people talk about Afro Latinas, and what does it mean to you to be an Afro Latina?
Well, for a long time, I didn't know what it meant when I came to the United States because I kept hearing them say African Americans. and it didn't somehow encompass all of who I was. And so I almost had to kind of go and search, but then came to the realization that I'm a black Latina. And what happens is when people hear Latina, they assume that you're going to have certain kind of hair and a certain skin color, but Latinos come in all shapes and sizes and colors, as do Americans. So I finally realized I'm a black Latina from Panama, and I don't have to deny any of my culture, so I embrace everything. It is informed by my mother's poem, by the kinds of foods that I eat and that I like, and by the things that I'm familiar with.
So, so my understanding is you moved from Panama to New York. How was it coming to New York? You know, you have a thick accent, you speak Spanish, but you also speak English. How did the kids treat you?
Well, before I even got to how the kids treated me, it was frightening. And I think the most frightening thing for me was when my brother and sister said, we're going to go take the train to go to the movies. And when they said train, when we were in Panama, so on the Sundays when my father didn't drive us, we took the train. And it was a choo choo train, and it chugged along and it chugged into the city. So when they said we're going to take the train to go to the movies, I was excited and ready to go get on the train. And first, I got nervous because they took me what seemed like underground. It was a subway. I didn't know at the time. And then all of a sudden, I heard this noise. It sounded like a racket. It sounded like a monster. It was so scary. And I had to run. I ran away. I ran up the steps and ran into the streets. And my brother and sister had to come get me because I was deathly afraid. And for a long time, they could not get me to go down in what I thought was a hole with a monster coming at me. Snow, however, was fun. I'd never seen snow before, and I remember putting on a lot of clothes and going outside and playing in the snow and building a snowman. So I really enjoyed that. Those things were good, but the children, on the other hand, as you said, they did not understand me. They did not understand a black girl with a heavy accent that they were not familiar with, and they were not kind. And so whenever I spoke in class, and I love school and I love to talk, this one girl in particular would harass me and threaten me and bully me. So it got to the point where I did not speak and I was traumatized. And so I know people find it hard to believe, but from the beginning of the school year, by the time the school year ended, I no longer sounded that way. And she frightened my accent out of me to the tune now that I can't even fake one. And that makes me a little sad, not to even be able to fake my accent. But I'm happy that I am bilingual. And it always ends up funny because still today, people don't understand. And so sometimes people say things in front of you not knowing that you understand what they're saying, and then you see them choke and cough when you let them know that they might not want to be saying whatever it is they're saying at the time. So, yeah, one time these people were in an elevator, and as the door was closing, they said something kind of derogatory. And just before the door closed, I told them in Spanish that they shouldn't say that because they don't know who can hear them, and that they wouldn't say something like that in front of their mother. And they kind of choked, and the people in the elevator laughed at them because they also realized that I knew what they were saying.
So, as you probably know, it is Hispanic Heritage Month
Mm-hmm.
this October. What is one lasting impression that you would like people to know about you and your culture and your experience as a Afro Latina?
I- that it's just made up of so many things. I think of um, a pollera. A pollera is the native dress of Panamanians, and you adorn your hair, and you have the skirt, and you do this dance, and I remember the music that goes along with it. I also remember this poem. This it's I don't even know exactly what it is, but it's very short. It goes, El 3 de noviembre viene, el 3 de noviembre va. Y yo con mi banderita saludo a Panama. So that was something that they taught us in school. So I think about that also. I think about the wonderful foods that my mother made. I think about just being able to speak two languages. Um, and mostly, I just want people to know not to make assumptions and don't mistreat people because how you might be defining them is not correct. So my classmates at the time, they expected me to be something and I wasn't that, and because I wasn't that, they bullied me, and it made me very sad during that time. And I'm just glad to be grown up and be more accepted. Even though it's funny because we have a program on my job at Penn where I work. It's called the Women of Color, and every year we have a big, big luncheon, and we have voices of color. And when I told the people that coordinate the program that I wanted to be the Latina voice of color, they chuckled like you can't be, and I'm saying why can't I be? Because they didn't understand that Latinos and Latinas come in all colors, and so that's what I wish people would understand and not deny all the people that are part of the culture, just like in America. You have all kinds of Americans, black, white, yellow, on, and a mixture of everything thereof. But you wouldn't say to them they're not American because they're not a particular color. So I just really would like people to understand that.
All right. Thank you very much. And any lasting words before we end the interview?
Well, I, oh, how can I say this? I wish that I hadn't succumbed so easily to the fear and the pressure of that I experienced in my early age, because there are many more things that I would have liked to have held on to. Like I wish that they appreciated the fact that I spoke Spanish, because I would have liked to have taught them Spanish. Not that I could, but I would have liked to have shared that with them. I would have liked to have shared more of the foods that I like. So what I want to say to people is that diversity is a wonderful thing, because so many different people bring so many wonderful treats and ideas and challenges to the table, and we're only stronger and better when we just invite everybody in. Thank you.